reaching for you. That's the prayer I want you to have today, reaching for God. And what we'll learn today is that you don't have to reach very far. You don't really have to reach at all. This is Aloha Sunday. And on Aloha Sunday, we always are celebrating a wonderful Hawaiian proverb. These proverbs were collected in a book by Dr. Mary Kawena Pukui called Olelo no Eau, which means wisdom sayings. The one we're looking at today is this. Aya ike au, aka hewahewa. Aya means there, so it kind of says there, ike, in the au is a strong current of water, and hewahewa, you're going to like this word, means crazy. So nudge your neighbor and say, hewahewa, hewahewa, hewahewa. That's one you're going to want. We all know the pretty words, but this is a really good word. So what Dr. Pukui says to us that it sort of means is gone on the crazy current. Yeah. And by the show of hands we heard earlier, not many of you have ever done that. Or at least not many of you are very honest, but that's a whole other sermon. Gone on the crazy current. This phrase was really put together, was created out of the story of the prodigal son. He was gone on the crazy current. It's one of the most famous of all the parables that are found in the 15th chapter of Luke. Jesus tells this amazing story about a man who has two sons. I'm not going to read it to you, I'm going to tell it to you. And the youngest one, I think probably around the age of manhood, which would have been 18, came to his dad and said, Dad, when you die, I get half of everything, right? And that was Jewish law. And the father says, yes, my son, this is true. And the son said, I want it now. And then the most amazing thing happened. The father, it says, went and wrote him a check. Meanwhile, I think it was his mother that was screaming, what, are you crazy? You're going to blow all that money? You're only 18 years old, you don't know. Yeah, but he went and gave half the money. Now the young man went off into a foreign country, and there he spent all of his inheritance on what the Bible calls riotous living, which is code for sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Now, let me see any hands up here now. Any riotous livers? Both my hands are up. These are the party people. Okay. The goody two-shoes stayed home and probably invested their part, in stocks and bonds. So the young man found himself very hungry after a while because there was no money, and he had to do the worst thing that an 18-year-old could ever do, get a job. So he did. He got the only job he could get, and it was feeding pigs. Now you understand, he was a little Jewish boy. Jewish boys are not even supposed to touch footballs because pigs were abomination. Pigs were abominable animals, and now he's feeding the abominable animals. He was what we call in some circles pitifully, incomprehensibly demoralized. He was at the bottom of his life. And when he was in his bottom in his life, the only evidence in the Bible of schizophrenia appeared, because it says he came to himself and said, I always wondered where had he been. Here he is. He said, Self, this is ridiculous. You can go home. Your servants in your father's house are living better than this. Go home and tell your dad you're sorry and you want to be a servant and you'll eat better and you won't have to feed pigs. And then it says he got up and he went. It's one of those little miracles in the Bible, that white space stuff I talk about, because a lot of us have lived like, me, 20 years in that little white space. This is what I need to do. And then 20 years later, I go and do it. He said, I'm going to go do it. And he got up and he did it. And he went home, and then this is the most beautiful part of the story. The Bible says that when he was a far way off, his father saw him and came running after him and fell on his neck and kissed him and said, my son who was lost is now found, who was dead is now alive. We're going to have this huge party. Praise everyone, my son is back. And so they did, and the other son, which would be most of you, who had stayed home, were not happy at this. Have you ever been unhappy because you had a family member who had squandered their soul on riotous living, and then they come home, mom and dad just love them, and you've been the good one. That's what happened. He was really mad. He wouldn't even come to the party. He was so mad. And then, this is a part of the story that most people don't ever hear, and I think it perhaps could be the most important part of the story. I'm going to read it to you from my old Hawaiian Bible, produced by the American Bible Society in 1816. The father turns to his angry, jealous, goody two-shoes son. And he said, I'm with you all the time. And then he says, all that I have is yours. In Hawaiian, it's aona me apawa'u o kaunoia. All that I have is yours. We don't know that, but we have already everything God could ever possibly hold in reserve for us, but we don't know it. It's already there. The other thing that's missing in that story that I think is so fantastic is that when the father comes home, there's none of this. Oh, you got one more chance, boy. You broke your mama's heart. You're not going to do this anymore. There is nowhere written in the story where God says, I forgive you. It's not written. And why? Because forgiveness was not needed. Each one of us needs to make those journeys. We have to, because we have to know what we don't want so as much as what we want. We have to find it out. And each one of those things are part and parcel of our own souls and vulnerable. And when we're there, it may not feel good. It may hurt. We may be hungry. But that's important in our development if we don't do that journey. And for me, I believe that the most sacred place in your life is when you come to that point where you say, I am choosing differently. And when you make that choice to choose differently and to come home to God, God is rushing up to meet you. That's the really cool part. You don't have to make that whole long journey back home again because God is right there, because God actually has never left. It's actually a phenomenal story. It is not, I believe, a story about forgiveness. It's not about repentance. It's not about sin. Nowhere in that story does it say when he spent his money on riotous living, it doesn't say, which was an abomination to God, and God cursed him and put marks on his body. And doesn't it say any of that? It just says that's what he did. Now, I don't know what any of you did. I know what some of you did, but confidentiality prevents me from sharing that. But we all had those things in our life. We've all had those times and periods when we've gone off to some place on a crazy current in our mind and we've felt left. We felt alone. And the magic of the story is you can come home. But it's really only half the magic of the story. Because the other half of the magic of the story is all of us have had someone who left us, someone who went away, someone we lost to a crazy current. And the model for us is to stand with open arms and say, I don't care where you've been. I don't care what you've done. I love you, and welcome home. We are every person in that story. We can play every character. I gave you a little card in your bulletin today that I want you to remember. I'm going to read it two ways. First way is, I know that I can come home, no matter where I've gone. And though I've lost my way, God is just a prayer away. You can read it that way, and you can also read it this way. I know that you can come home, no matter where you've been. And though you've lost your way, God and I are just a prayer away. I really want you to remember this, and so one of the ways I get you to remember things is to put them in a song. So I'm going to teach you a song that goes with these words. I feel like Glee. I'm ready to sing a song and all these musicians just appear out of it. It's fantastic. I always wonder where they come from. Do you ever wonder that? Like you're in the cafeteria and there's people playing cellos and they all know the music already. You guys know this song? Yeah. See? It's one of those fantastic miracles. Here's how it goes. I'll sing it for you the first time and then you can join in, okay? I know that I can go home no matter where I've gone. And though I've lost my way, God's just a prayer away. Can you try it? Let's try it. I know that I can go no matter where I've gone. And though I've lost my way, God's just a prayer away. So one more time till you really get it. I know that I can go no matter where I've gone. And though I've lost my way, God's just a prayer away. Now I want you to imagine in your life a situation where you've been feeling lost a little bit. And like most of us, we think we're going to fix it. There is a marvelous prayer that you can pray that will change everything. It's not an officially approved unity prayer, but I know from personal experience that it works. You need to memorize this. God help me. Can you say it? God help me. You see, that's the prayer away. That's all you have to know. When we're tired of doing it ourselves, when we're sick and tired of being sick and tired, we can do that. If you have that place in your life right now, God can help. And this is what you need to know. I know that I can go no matter where I've gone. And though I've lost my way, God's just a prayer away. Now I want you to do one more thing before we leave. I want you to imagine that you want to sing this song to someone in your life who has gone away. Someone in your life that's struggling. Someone who's had a hard time, lost in the rushing current. And I want you to tell them what you just told yourself. I know that you can come home no matter what. Close your eyes with me for just a moment, please. As we begin this time of meditation, I want you to understand there's just one prayer you need to make. God, help me. And God will come running to you. God will fall on your neck, will kiss you. Say, this, my child who was lost is found. The choice is ours always. And God will always run to us. In these quiet moments, make a decision in your heart to come home to God now, as we spend some time in the sacred and holy silence.